Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
Dot, I assume Tom.
Markian Tarasiuk. All right, so that's the closest to Ukrainian pronunciation I'm going to get right, but at least, we're almost there.
You've done your research with the Ukrainian side. I'm happy to hear that. Yes.
Well, we are talking about Hunting Matthew Nichols, which is coming to the Newport Beach Film Festival on Saturday, October 19th at 5:30 p.m. at the Triangle. This is a fascinating documentary. One thing I want to make sure that we touch upon is that, there is that Blair Witch aspect of it that you guys talk about in the film, where you guys really enjoy, where Matthew really enjoyed the film, and his sister Tara was a part of that. And then the notion of the Wendigo and these various cryptozoology and conspiracy theories play into this because of the disappearances. How did you become a part of this? Were you friends with Matthew and his sister? Like, where did all this come about?
No, I wasn't. Yeah. So, we are talking about this as the real documentary that I made, correct? That's what we're talking about here?
Yes, yeah. I just thought it was interesting that you added cryptozoology into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how I got involved was I know Tara. We met at a festival in Vancouver as filmmakers years ago, and I found out that she had this story that she hadn't really explored in her life. So her and I, I had heard about it, but her and I, we got closer over the years. We worked on a couple of film projects together, and then I kind of approached her to ask, would this be something that you want to explore, from a documentary perspective? Because as we know, that not a lot was known about the case at the time. It was a small case on Vancouver Island. It was 2001. There wasn't a lot of, information getting out past the island because Port Rupert's a really, really small town. And the police do have the notion that, the kids most likely went into the forest, and it's just kind of just a missing persons case because a lot of people go missing, and that was kind of case closed. So we wanted to explore that, the side of Tara's life from her perspective, and then basically make this documentary to get the answers that we're looking for, or the closure that she is, kind of searching for, and approaching it from her lens, which I don't think has been explored before.
Yeah, I mean, she lived a hard life. She got into a bit of a substance abuse situation. Her dad was always working, going on search parties, and avoiding dealing with his own emotional thing in the search. The mother, Brenda, felt neglected in all of this. Like, how do you visit something nearly a quarter of a century ago and then try to get closure now, all this time later, while reopening those wounds?
It's a tricky balance, right? Because you are dealing with a lot of trauma, I think, at the end of the day. So it was my job to, I think, contain a lot of the process for Tara, because she was part of the process. She was a producer herself on the project, and so it was kind of my job to contain everything, do check-ins with Tara to make sure that everything is being approached from a really sensitive side, because these are real people, right, with a real story that we're exploring, especially a lot with her family. And I think, though, we tried to approach it from the positive place, in which where our intentions are to find closure, are to find the answers, because Tara at the time was 12 when Matthew went missing, and as a child was, I think, protected from a lot of the information that was or from the case itself at the time. So basically, I think for her as an adult and Tara to then come at that time of her life as an adult, and just find those answers and ask the questions that she's never asked her mom, ask the questions that she's never asked Pam before. So at the end of the day, even though, and I don't want to give away the information reveals or the ending, but if those answers didn't come to her, or we don't know where Matthew is, it still is good to ask those questions, right, at the end of the day, so she can kind of, I think, sleep better at the night. knowing that she went to every extent to try to find the answers of what happened to her brother on that night in 2001.
And at some point, because you're a friend of hers and a friend of the family, how do you separate yourself as filmmaker and documentarian, and then friend and trying to be a comforter and console her, whether it's in between shots or you just let it go? Like, how does that work for you as a human being?
That's a really great question, and it was a really tricky balance because I have exactly what you just said. I have two responsibilities. One is my responsibility as the director and the production and the safety and everybody on set, and also looking for the narrative path through this whole thing of what story do I want to tell, because it's Tara's story and she is heavily involved and I am her friend, but at the same time I think it's good to have an outsider to create the narrative, because we want to make something exciting that audiences will connect with at the end of the day. So that's my job. So that is definitely one part and 50% of the kind of the agreement. The other side being Tara's friend. And I think that's where I actually struggled a lot in this, because of my job as a director and what I need to accomplish and what we need to get done as kind of a crew and as filmmakers is one thing. But then when you are dealing with a friend who's that close to me, and she did go through a lot of struggle, I do also have to contain that as well, and be there for her. So you're right in that saying, like, how do you do that? And I think that was just a negotiation, and definitely I would waver. It was a really hard thing to try to be her friend, but also the director, and know that I want to make this documentary and that we need to finish it. And she's got all of her motivations and angles and queries and questions, and I had to try to steer her in the right direction throughout the process, which was a really tricky thing to do. But hopefully, I've done her justice. I've done Tara's story justice and Matthew's story justice within all of this. And but it was hard. It was hard, definitely.
With Tara receiving all the information that she has and going on this journey and then seeing the final cut of the film after everything's been edited down to 95 minutes, has she been able to at least have a good night's sleep or have her conscious mind at ease at some point after going through all of this, or is she still having those struggles?
That's a great question. And I think, again, I don't want to give away the ending for our audience members here, because I think it's the most compelling part of the film.
Of course, I just want to know if she's actually found like a night's rest after all of this.
A night's rest after that. I don't know. I would say that since we finished filming, her and I have lost touch. And I haven't gotten her, I think, truthful opinion on everything so far. That I think she's happy with it, but our communication is definitely I don't want to say we've had a falling out. I'm still in touch with her in some ways, but I think she's happy with it at the end of the day, and I think she's happy with the way the answers that we got.
Well, after something like this, and revisiting a quarter of a century of the struggle, I think you're going to need a break and just be by yourself at this point, not be in communication with everyone. So I understand that you guys are taking that break.
I think we went through a really intense thing, and I think she did. This was intense, extremely intense, the whole process, for a lot of reasons. And so I think it's healthy that her and I have kind of taken a bit of a break from our relationship. I think our relationship towards the film, our relationship towards the case, I definitely had to step away. I had to get the movie made and finished at the end of the day. But it's just been like a hard road to get to where we are today and to our premiere. And I think it'll all be worth it at the end of the day. But do it all for the artistry of what we do and the sacrifices that we have to make with time, emotions, all of that stuff. And sometimes now we see friendships, right? So yeah.
Well, I mean, you put a compelling documentary together. You spent months upon months with each other in the car investigating all this information. Is there something that didn't quite fit the narrative that you're like, ooh, this would be pertinent to it, but it doesn't, advance the story itself?
That's a really great question. I mean, we have hours and hours. I think at the end of the day, our footage that we had to go through was a lot, right? And as I think that's the tricky thing as a documentarian is you get so much and you have to boil it down to kind of the main points in order to make it digestible for audiences, right? So nothing that really like pushed the story forward. I mean, I think there could have been like a lot of stock in which we went down. We could have gone down a lot of paths, right? So in the beginning of the film, we explore all of kind of the police theories about what happened to the boys, right? And I think because of time and resources, we couldn't really go down all the way, with a lot of those theories of did they run away? Did they become filmmakers in Los Angeles? I haven't searched Los Angeles for these kids. I think like throughout the process, I had to start putting stock in what I thought was reality and what I thought was the best explanation. And then we had to go down that path instead of, because I think something with like a missing persons case or a cold case is with all the conspiracy theories, you can go down whichever road, right? And probably make a compelling case for it if you try. So again, I had to just kind of like stay steadfast on what I thought and believed to be the most likely case possible of what occurred and what happened on that night, and then kind of go full steam ahead on that without getting too much distraction. So I think that's one thing that I think people might watch the beginning and say, oh, what about that? What about that? It's basically like we can touch on these points, what happened to them, but I didn't want to. I wanted to make this a tight 90-minute story and not like a lot of Netflix documentaries are 6, 7, 8 parts, right? I think it's much more compelling if everything is focused storytelling and we're going down one path of truth throughout this whole thing. So that's why the decision was made to make it a movie, not a limited series or something like that. Because I get bored when I watch those limited series about episode 3. I'm like a little, and they start going down crazy paths sometimes, and I didn't want to do that as a director.
Right, and you don't want to go down the conspiracy theory path. I mean, there were those urban legends and cryptozoology stories, but that's just what 2-3 minutes throughout the entire film. So it's just background of that region of Canada.
Correct, and I mean, it's background of that region to give kind of cultural context when we talk about one of the local legends in Port Rupert is this Roy McKenzie character. And that's what Matt and Jordan were into at the time, that it's just like a local legend that exists there. So giving context to everything and kind of giving the audience background enough to, I think, create the entire picture of what especially the cops were dealing with at the time and what we knew, but not, like you just said, of not going down full conspiracy theory paths for entertainment purposes, I don't think was appropriate in this movie.
And this is the world premiere coming to Newport Beach Film Festival. It's the 25th anniversary, quarter of a century for this one. How exciting was it as a filmmaker to be a part of not only the silver anniversary, a quarter century with Newport, but to also have your world premiere there?
I mean, it's incredibly exciting. Look, I think I was shocked that we were selected by Newport, especially on their 25th year. There's a lot of huge movies there this year having their premieres, so we're just like really, really lucky to be involved with those other movies and these other filmmakers. But also, yeah, it being the 25th year, it's going to be incredibly, I think, a special and a larger year. And to get our movie in there and recognized by the programmers, just incredibly excited. And I think audiences in Newport will just be super surprised with this film. I don't think it really fits their traditional model of what they usually take into the festival, to be honest. And everybody wondering what that means. When you see the movie, you'll understand. It's a little different. So I'm just incredibly excited that it's going to be there, and I think audiences there they're going to be surprised. I think it's unlike something that's ever been shown at the Newport Beach Film Festival. So hopefully a lot of people come up to check it out.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and congratulations on the documentary. What was the shoot like? Because you had several months to go through the shooting process and to bring the narrative together, and then the whittling it down to 95 minutes has to be daunting on you as well.
I mean, yeah, this project realistically has taken up 4 years of my life, from the early stages of figuring out and pre-production, getting all the pieces in place. It's a massive undertaking, to the months on end of lawyers, police precincts. It was just a massive job that took years. And then our formal filming process was about 5 months of shooting, kind of from start to finish. And then from there, this entire year has just been me editing and with my editor and post-production team to get this thing finished. So like, I would say I've been on this full-time over a year, and then part-time before that. And yeah, it's taken up all of my life, and I'm just excited now to start sharing it with audiences. Yeah.
That was gonna be the follow-up question. What does it feel like now that you've come to completion with this, and you're just like, wow, it's done. We've finished what we were supposed to finish. We've accomplished this. You're happy with the final product. Does it almost feel like a graduation for you?
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah, it feels like a graduation. I feel like there are always these, especially as a first-time director, there are these moments that you celebrate. And, one of them was just getting to camera. One of them was finishing the shoot. One of them was getting the first edit done, getting the movie finished. And now the new one, the celebration, is sharing it with the world. And to me, it's the scariest one. Because, you hope that people enjoy what I've made. And as a director, it's what I love from a movie or from a documentary. And I hope people just share that same opinion with me. I think some people will be, I don't know, I don't want to use the words like not like it. I just don't know what the reaction will be, to be honest, to it. I think it's just going to be all over the map, as any good piece of art should do, I think. I think there'll be differing opinions, but at the end of the day, what this is meant to do is start a conversation. And I think I did my job in terms of a director, in opening up a dialogue about what this movie is and what this case is.
Markian, thank you so much for your time today. Hunting Matthew Nichols is the documentary, having its world premiere at Newport Beach Film Festival on October 19th at the Triangle. The website is Hunting Matthew Nichols, all socials, Hunting Matthew Nichols. Where can we find you as well, other than just the documentary, if we want to connect with you and see other projects that you'll be working on?
Yeah, connect with me on social media. I'm most active on Instagram at Mark Taras. You can also follow the film at Hunting Matthew Nichols online too, because there's going to be a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we are going to be sharing. And one thing that I'm telling all the audiences is come get involved with the case on social media, on our website, and because there's a lot more to be uncovered, and I think there's a lot more answers we can do even post this movie coming out that will get audiences involved and more eyeballs on this case. So yeah, follow along, follow me. I'll be posting.
Fantastic. Congratulations one last time. Hunting Matthew Nichols, Saturday, October 19th, 5:30 p.m. at the Triangle, world premiere, 25th anniversary, Newport Beach Film Festival. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, RC.